The question is it planning to not only probe these planets, but perhaps even release probes that will visit the Earth?
There's something happening tomorrow that could change everything we know about the most mysterious object in our solar system. We don't know if we're looking at an ancient cosmic rock or the first concrete evidence of alien technology. And in less than 24 hours, we might finally have our answer. But we won't be able to see any of it happen. Tomorrow is the 29th of October 2025, and that's when the interstellar object Atlas reaches its perihelion, the closest point to our solar orb. It will pass 203 million kilometers from our star, or about 1.4 astronomical units. That's somewhere just inside Mars's orbit. And according to Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb, this is what he calls the decisive test of Atlas, the moment of truth. This will be the hottest moment Atlas will experience during its journey through our solar system. The object will be bombarded with 770 watts of energy per square meter. This is normal for a comet. We call this process sublimation. It's what happens when solid material transitions directly to gas because there's no liquid in the vacuum of space. And sublimation is what gives the comet its distinctive appearance with a diffuse halo and a long tail. But here's where things get interesting. If Atlas is a natural comet held together by weak forces, this intense heating could break it apart into fragments that evaporate rapidly due to their large surface area. The result would be spectacular fireworks, a much brighter cometary plume of gas and dust. However, if Atlas was technologically manufactured, as suggested by its unusual composition, it might do something completely different. It might maneuver, it could release mini probes, we might detect artificial lights or excessive heat from an engine. And unfortunately, we can't see this happening because we're on the wrong side. Our view of perihelion is completely blocked by the glare of our star. Which raises a disturbing question that Avi Loeb posed in his latest paper. Was this trajectory fine-tuned by extraterrestrial intelligence? The Trojan Horse question. Avi Loeb calls this the fundamental question. Is Atlas a Trojan horse with the external appearance of a natural comet, but carrying a potential threat within? He points out that the city of Troy would have been better served if its guardians had not been fooled by the external appearance of the Trojan horse. This isn't just academic speculation. Avi Loeb co-authored an official document encouraging policymakers to take seriously the potential threat of what they call a black swan event involving an unusually massive object moving along the ecliptic plane, like Atlas. Perihelion is just 2 days before Halloween. Is Atlas wearing a comet costume, or is it truly a natural icy rock? The revolutionary discovery. We've been tracking Atlas since July 2025. It was officially spotted by the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, which is actually a network of telescopes around the world in places like Hawaii, Chile, and South Africa. What they do is watch the night sky and look for moving objects, and that's what they saw on the night of July 1st, just another moving object. So they classify it as a new asteroid and are ready to move on. But then they notice something strange about this one. It's moving very fast. When astronomers timed the speed of this new object, they were shocked. This was the fastest moving object ever detected in our solar system. Planet Earth orbits our star at a speed of 30 kilometers per second. Mercury, much closer to our star, has to orbit at about 48 kilometers per second to avoid falling into the gravitational well. The new object was moving at 58 kilometers per second, and at the time it was still way out there, just inside Jupiter's orbit. At that speed, it was clear this object was going to shoot right past our star and keep going. We call this a hyperbolic trajectory, meaning this thing came from the void of interstellar space, and that's where it would return after completing its grand tour of our solar system. The third interstellar visitor, that's when the name Atlas came up. Third interstellar object, meaning there were two before it. You probably know Oumuamua, the first interstellar visitor ever identified. And it was pretty weird too, though it was weird in a totally different way from Atlas. We also have a second interstellar object, the often overlooked Borisov, which actually wasn't that strange. Apart from the fact that it was interstellar, it basically acted like a normal comet. There are three major differences between Atlas and its interstellar siblings. One is size. It's literally much larger. Oumuamua was up to 400 meters wide. Borisov was up to 1 kilometer wide, but Atlas could be up to 5.6 kilometers wide. 2 is speed. Atlas travels at about twice the speed of Oumuamua and Borisov. And 3 is the direction the object came from. And this is the really strange one. Oumuamua came from above, from the northern sky, which is the general direction the solar system is moving toward. Borisov did basically the same thing. It came at a more diagonal angle than straight on, but from the same general direction. Now, Atlas isn't another head-on collision. This is a side impact, and it's coming in almost perfect alignment with all the planets. Our solar system is like a disk of things that formed around our star. We call this disk the ecliptic plane. The interstellar object is just 3 degrees off this ecliptic plane. It hit our solar system in perfect alignment with the disk. Space is 3-dimensional, and this object could have come from any direction. So having something hit us almost perfectly from the side is a very big coincidence. Impossible composition. While Atlas was officially discovered on July 1st, it was actually first spotted on the 7th of May 2025 by the Transiting Exoplanet Survey satellite. Astronomers had a hypothesis that Atlas's brightness would increase by a factor of 1.5 between May and June, but the data showed that brightness actually increased by a factor of 5. So there was a massive increase in the amount of light being reflected by this object. There are 2 strange things about this observation. One has to do with light polarization. Most objects in space have mainly positive polarization, even interstellar objects. Borisov was positive, but Atlas is negative. And not just that, it has the most extreme negative polarization of any object ever discovered. And then the second surprising thing about Atlas's coma was the fact that it existed at all. Atlas was still way out there beyond Jupiter's orbit, more than 5 astronomical units away from our star. It's so cold that we normally don't spot comets at 5 astronomical units because they typically haven't started forming their coma yet. As we continued to observe Atlas, we learned that the coma was actually dominated by carbon dioxide gas. It had some water vapor, but the carbon dioxide ratio was much higher, about 8 to 1. This is basically the opposite of what we're used to finding in comets. If you've ever seen dry ice before, it's frozen carbon dioxide. And as soon as it's removed from deep freezing, dry ice will instantly start to sublimate, making that characteristic cloud of gas. That's what Atlas was doing way out there in space. And that's why its coma formed so early, because carbon dioxide ice melts at a much lower temperature than water ice. The metal mystery. When it was observed during the summer, astronomers detected a small amount of nickel in the surrounding cloud, but detected no iron. This is strange because nickel and iron are typically found together in planets, moons, asteroids, and comets. So when we see a lot of nickel but no iron, we wonder where the iron went. What process separated them? It's strange to see any metal sublimating from Atlas given its distance from our star when this observation was made. Probably, the massive release of carbon dioxide was dragging nickel atoms along. Now, just as water vapor made a very sudden appearance in Atlas's coma, the same thing eventually happened with iron. In late September, astronomers began detecting iron for the first time in the coma. And then very quickly, the nickel to iron ratio changed to a more normal combination of the two. So Atlas is becoming more normal over time, but it's getting there in a very strange way. What happens next? On the 3rd of November 2025, Atlas will reach 97 million kilometers from Venus. During the same week, it will be observable by ESA's JUICE mission along its path to Jupiter. On the 19th of December 2025, 6 days before Christmas, Atlas will reach its closest distance of 267 million kilometers from Earth, assuming a purely gravitational trajectory. Will Atlas send mini probes toward Earth as Christmas gifts for humanity? Avi Loeb has asked his research team at the Galileo project to check for any unusual activity by anomalous objects in Earth's atmosphere based on data collected by the 3 Galileo observatories in the coming months. On the 16th of March 2026, Atlas will reach its closest distance of 54 million kilometers from Jupiter, like where the Juno spacecraft could photograph it and use a radio antenna to check for any radio transmissions as a technological signature. The decisive test. Thus, perihelion constitutes the decisive test of Atlas. If it's a natural comet glued together by weak forces, its heating by 770 watts per square meter could break it apart into fragments that evaporate more rapidly as a result of their large surface area per unit mass. The resulting fireworks could generate a much brighter cometary plume of gas and dust around it. However, if Atlas was technologically manufactured as suggested by its high abundance of nickel relative to iron, it might maneuver or release mini-probes. Other technological signatures include artificial lights or excessive heat from an engine. We'll know better the nature of Atlas in the coming months. As Avi Loeb emphasized, in a blind date of interstellar proportions, we'd better observe our date partners instead of being guided by the limited imagination of our Hollywood screenwriter colleagues. Tomorrow, October 29th, we find out if Atlas removes its mask. The answer to one of humanity's greatest questions might be just hours away.